Welcome. So we have some people from Iowa, we have some people from Indiana. It looks like somebody's just jumping on from South Alabama Archaeology Museum. So wonderful.
Yeah.
Museum of Osteopathic Medicine. Hi, Heather. Hi, Patrick Dare, St. Joseph Museum trustee. Welcome, everyone. As I mentioned, for some of you, this will be a reminder, but this Friday at 1:30, we do have another webinar coming up, and that is going to be harnessing the power of museums and archives to create transformative conversations about race in America. And we'll have a series of panelists, Faye Dant from the Jim's Journey Museum in Hannibal, Gary Wilkinson from the St. Joseph Black Archives Museum will be presenting, and Connie Yin will be presenting from the Millie Sawyer Project. So join us on Friday at 1:30 again. You can get registered for that, and it should be a really timely and important conversation for us to have. If you are just jumping on, please put where you're coming from in the chat and your organization. And then I'm going to turn it over to Candace. Candace Sall is the former president of the Missouri Association of Museums and Archives and is a spectacular, wonderful human being. She's also the curator at the Museum of Anthropology at the campus of MU in Columbia. And she's also the NAGPRA specialist there. She has her PhD in archaeology and works quite a bit with NAGPRA and repatriation and consultation. And so she's my go-to person for if I have NAGPRA questions, I call Candy and say, what do I do here? And so I'm gonna let her just go ahead and get started. And hopefully if you guys have questions, you can type those in the chat. We can ask them at the end, or we'll open the session up for questions at the end. So Candace, take it away.
Great, thanks, Sarah. I'm excited to talk to everyone. I have a little slideshow to show you a few things. I don't know everything. I've learned a lot. I learned a little every single year. I learned more. But I'm here to tell you what I know and let you know that I'm here for any questions anyone has in our state or others. I'll share what I know and we'll work through anything together. I'm going to switch the share screen here. See if that works. It's my first time. Let's see if it's going to work. I don't know what's happening here. It's asking me questions. There. Hey, there we go. Can you guys see it? I can see it. Can you guys see my screen? Yeah, okay. All right, so here's a little presentation I gave somewhat similar to the MAMA conference last year. It's really the basics. Where do you start? If you don't know the word NAGPRA, or you barely know the word NAGPRA, what can you do? I restrained myself from saying ask the tribes, consult the tribes on every single slide, but really that's the take-home message here, is to treat everything with respect and talk with people. Don't be afraid. So here we go. Treat all items with respect. Native American collections, a lot of us have them in our museum. It might be a few arrowheads. It might be some beautiful textiles or clothing that they have at the St. Joseph Museum or that we have here in Columbia at the Museum of Anthropology or any of ours across the state, the Nelson Atkins, SLAM. Lots of museums and historic societies have collections. First of all, treat them with respect. As museum people, we usually do that, but I want to say that to treat everything with respect. Handle them carefully. Don't toss them around. You know, pieces can fall off. A lot of them are older pieces. So you want to be really careful that beads don't fall off, or feathers or metal tinklers might fall off your objects. And store and display respectfully. I don't know what that means. Like, of course we take care of our stuff. We all know best practices for storing things, protecting things, but you want to support baskets. You want to, we have the world's largest collection of archery. So how do you store an arrow so that it's not on the point and it's not resting on the feather? So how do you raise that up and protect those pieces of the object? And display respectfully as well. There's a picture you can see of a pipe and a pipe stem. actually it was hard to find a picture like this, searching for the internet today. You want to store your pipes and pipe stems separately. They can be together, but not put together. Like you don't want to put the stem into the pipe. It's a ceremonial object and it needs to be apart except during ceremony. And so that's something easy that we can all do, if you know to do, is to take your pipes and pipe stems separate and keep them there. This one's from the National Museum of American Indian. Catlinite has a horse on the front. It's really a really cool piece that you can see. So that's something that we can do in our everyday work. If you walk by and you see something in your storage, okay, we take the pipes apart and just leave them in their same spot. But that's something that you can do very quickly if you know to do it. And so all objects are different, all tribes are different. So that's why I say multiple times, talk with the tribes. If you know it's listed as an Osage piece, call the Osage, send them an email, ask them if this is okay what you're doing. Do they have suggestions for better ways to do it? Don't inundate them with hundreds of emails, of course. But if something that you're concerned about, talk to them. Here's a great book that I want to recommend to you. It came out in 2004. Sherilyn Ogden edited it, but the chapters are written by Native American tribal members and museum staff, sometimes both, and really get their perspective of what do you do with a sacred object? How do you create a good display? How do you store things properly? And then it lists other references, so you can get other books and try out different things. And so I really like that. It's a good starting place. I know Mama's been giving these out a lot at conferences, so I hope everyone has a copy. If not, you can get them online. They're readily available. And like I said, lots more references in there to go from. NAGPRA. If you don't know what NAGPRA is, it's the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. It was started in 1990, it was signed into law. Who was required to comply with it? All federal agencies and public and private museums that have ever received $1 in federal aid, even if you're not getting any now, federal funding. So that is a lot of museums, except for the Smithsonian, who has their own act that started a year before, so they've been working an extra year longer than other museums on similar legislation. So if you have anything, which I'll tell you what the things are for NAGPRA, then you need to work with those. You cannot transfer, this is against the spirit of the law, you may not transfer an item from your museum to another museum who's never gotten federal funding so that you can avoid NAGPRA. That is illegal, you can't do that. You can move things so that they're more easily cared for someone who is doing NAGPRA if everyone agrees and the tribes agree and things work out. But you cannot transfer it to get around NAGPRA. So all of us should be doing that if we're part of this who is required, part of the law. The law was passed in 1990. It came with zero funding at the time. So everyone had to do these things with no money, but there are available NAGPRA grants today that you can get, and they are consultation and documentation grants, and then also a repatriation grant. So for actual funding the travel and the getting things ready to give back to tribes. So there are monies to get that paid for. So we have that. Remember again, treat all items with respect. Just treat it how you would want to treat it. Think of it as if it were your grandparents, if it was your ancestors, how you're going to treat things. So what items are under NAGPRA? Human remains, that could be teeth, bones, hair that's attached, anything that would be part of a human. It does exclude things that you might have shed or given away when you were alive. So if there's braided hair and it was used as rope, that won't count, or a baby tooth, which would be shed, may not count under human remains, that would be buried. But really anything else that has to do with humans. And funerary objects. So anything placed at the time of death or later. So someone could have came back and left an offering, that counts as a funerary object. So if people would go back and leave flowers or any kind of thing at the funeral, near the human remains, that's an object. And then there's two kinds, those are separated. Are they associated funerary objects? And those are items that someone has the human remains. It doesn't have to be your museum. So maybe my museum was studying the human remains and we sent the artifacts to another museum to be studied. Those are still associated objects because someone is holding the remains. So it labels them as someone has remains somewhere and you need to know about that. And then unassociated objects will be something that no one has the remains, but we know it came from a grave. or a funeral place. That can be the bones were so degraded in the ground they couldn't be collected, or they didn't collect them for some reason, or they just took the objects. It's written down that it's from a burial. Those would be unassociated remains. And so those are differentiated. They're treated the same, but it just lets you know whether you need to be looking for human remains with those. Sacred objects and objects of cultural patrimony. Those we can't say about, as in we don't know about. I can state that my museum, the Museum of Anthropology, does not have any known cultural objects, sacred objects or objects of cultural patrimony, but I'm not the decider. The tribes will tell me this is a sacred object. They might tell me this is an object of cultural patrimony. They have to be the ones to tell you because I'm not part of that society. I don't know those things. And so those things are treated differently. I put the description on there. So a sacred object is a ceremonial object which is needed by the tribe, by the religious leaders for the practice of their religion by the present day adherents. So it's needed for the religion. So museums can't have something that is sacred. And then objects of cultural patrimony is an object, it's owned by the whole group, not by one person, like it's owned by the tribe. And so as such, you can't have it because no one can give it to you or sell it to you or gift it to you because that person does not own it. The tribe owns it. And so it is an important part of their culture and it can't be separated from them. And so those objects would be listed. But like I said, a tribe has to tell you that what those are. You may not know what those are. Some tribes, fish hooks are sacred objects. And you would, as someone today, an American today, I'm like, a fish hook is a sacred object. Well, sometimes it is. It depends on the tribe and what kind of fish hook or anything. So seriously, I can't know. The tribe has to tell you about those. So those are the big definitions, and they're official. And NAGPRA has these definitions all on their webpage. So you don't have to memorize them. You can always check. But you can't know until a tribe tells you on those. What has been repatriated since NAGPRA? A lot has happened. It's 30 years now since NAGPRA, coming this November. There's still a lot to go. So while these are large numbers, 57,000 individuals, that could be, we have from this burial one tooth. That counts as one individual. It could be full skeletons. We don't know. We count them as individuals. And so 57,000 have been repatriated. Like I said, there's still a lot to go. Associated funeral objects, almost 1.5 million. Sometimes we have a burial that might have 200 beads. So some of them are small objects, but some of them are quite large. Unassociated funeral objects, 200,000. Sacred objects, 5,000. Over 8,000 objects of cultural patrimony, 1,000 that are both sacred and cultural patrimony. So those are just some of the numbers. There's a lot of work been done and a lot of work still to go on NAGPRA. So where do you start? Some of you have come into museums and they have a NAGPRA program going. Some of you may go to a museum and they haven't even started. They didn't know they needed to. Some museums may think, oh, I don't have any human remains, so I'm good. I don't have to do NAGPRA. But even if you don't have human remains, you may have sacred objects or objects of cultural patrimony. So you need to send a summary of all of your collections to tribes. So that could be to the tribes. So say you have an arrowhead collection, or you have a cool pair of beaded gloves, something like that in the collections that you may know which tribe it goes to. You may have down a tribal name, you may not. You may have just Plains or California tribe. So you want to make the list and write up a summary. It can be 1 page of your objects, and send it to the tribes in your area, and you send it to National NAGPRA saying which tribes you sent it to. That was due in 1993. They gave you 3 years to get that done. And then you had 2 more years until 95 to get an inventory, counts, and descriptions of your human remains, your funerary objects, your sacred objects, and objects of cultural patrimony sent into National NAGPRA, and consulting with the tribes. And you need to consult with the lineal descendants if you know. Direct descendants is first, and then if not, you can go to Indian tribes and Native Hawaiian organizations. Those can be tribes that were in the area now, tribes that were in the area historically, prehistorically, tribes that moved through the area. And so getting that together, which to me has been the most difficult part, is knowing who to contact. And so there are places you can look at to find out who to contact. And I'll go through that in a minute, but you take those inventories and summaries, and you can send out a summary and link to your database. If, you know, now it's modern, maybe we didn't have online databases in 1993, to say, here's my collections, you can see pictures of it and what we know about it. Tribes can look there, they can talk to you, they can ask you for lists or ask you for more information. They may ask you for more in-depth pictures of something, like, can you zoom in on this detail, then I'll know if it's my tribe, or what you may have about the information. And so sometimes you're just talking to the tribes and saying, here's what I know, here's what I found out, and go from there and see what they want to know. And sometimes, you know, museum records have a lot written down, and a lot of times we don't know, found in collection, or it's said to be a plains tribe. Well, Northern Plains, Southern Plains, can we narrow this down at all? And sometimes we can, and sometimes we cannot. And so you work with different groups for everything. So you get to the last at the bottom there. What if your institution has not complied with NAGPRA? Okay, you haven't complied with NAGPRA and you think you need to. You can read their webpage, call National NAGPRA. They're in Washington, D.C. They are fantastic people. They will help you. They will assign someone to help you, to walk you through all of the steps. So don't stress. There are civil penalties. There are investigations. They do have a group that does that, but that is for people who are willfully ignoring the law. If you call and say, I need to start, I don't know, or I don't know if this thing is on there, what do I do? They will help you get started and send you, there's a lot of YouTube videos you can see about the process, and a lot of information online, and templates too. So how do you write a notice of inventory completion? There's a template. How do you contact a tribe? How do you know who to contact? You know, there's information there, but they will help you. So don't be afraid. Pick up the phone and call, send an email, ask if you can set up a phone call, whatever it is. Just get started. So when you have objects, you want to culturally affiliate them. You need to figure out who they belong to. So it can be a shared group identity traced historically or prehistorically between a modern tribe and earlier group. So who was here in Missouri? Sarah told you I'm an archaeologist, so in the Mississippian period. Who was here in the Woodland period? Who was here way back in the Archaic or Paleo-Indian period? What tribe is that? I don't know. We don't have tribal names for the Paleo-Indian period. Also, not many burials lasting from that time. But you want to work your way back and figure out who could have been there. People may not think of the Cherokee in Missouri, but the Trail of Tears went through Missouri and people died on the Trail of Tears. So you need to think about tribes who were here, tribes that moved through, tribes that moved in, tribes that moved out, and figure out where you can go with that. What's the scale to determine? The law says preponderance of evidence. So slightly more, 50% likely that it is the tribe, then you need to call it that tribe. You don't have to have concrete evidence. They do not want you to do new research. They do not want you to do DNA on those and destroy human remains to figure out what tribe they go to. Do not do that. And I'll show you what you would use. But that's the level of knowing. So different lines you can do for cultural affiliation. Geographical, they were here historically. This was their hunting ground. This is ancestral lands. Kinship, we're related to this tribe. Biological, do we have information that way? Or archaeological, anthropological. Linguistics, do we think they have the similar languages? Folklore, oral traditions, are there stories of being in that area? Historical evidence, relevant information. And expert opinion, you can write down who was the expert opinion and you think it's this tribe. But you must consider all lines of evidence, including anything shared to you when you're consulting with the tribes. So you can use any or all of these, and when you turn in who you think it's affiliated with, you mark down which ones you're using for evidence. You can say, here's why I think it's this tribe. So like I said, what tribes were in Missouri? Many lived here in the past, more moved in as settlers moved west and pushed other tribes into Missouri, and then other tribes moved through, such as the Trail of Tears that the Cherokee and others were on, and we have maps showing where they might have gone through, where the different trails were, because there were more than one trail. And here's just a list of some of the tribes you might talk with from Missouri. The Oto Missouri, the Osage, the Kaw, the Sac and Fox, which there are 3 different tribes. The Iowa has 2 tribes, Quapaw, Delaware, Kickapoo, 3 different ones. Peoria, Omaha, Shawnee, the Prairie Band Potawatomi, Citizen Potawatomi, Chickasaw, Absentee Shawnee, Ponca, Cherokee, Muskogee, the Creek, 6 Sioux tribes, the Prairie Island Indian Community, and the Sisseton Wahpeton Ayate. So that's just some of them. There might be others, depending on if you're on the edge. I just noticed the Illinois are not listed on there, and they do have a site in Missouri, at least one that I know of. So I should have added the Illinois on there. So it depends on what county, and usually people will share with you what counties they are interested in. If some tribes only were in the north side of the Missouri River, and they didn't come to they're not going to want to consult with you on the south of that because that wasn't their area, south of the Missouri River, or whatever it might be where they were. And so these are just a starting list of tribes. There's 114 counties in Missouri. So there could be different ones for every tribe. Like I said, north of the river, south of the river, the east side of the state, the west side of the state, all along the Mississippi. And depending on what time period, whether someone will want to consult with you or not. So that's how we generally separate those. Some tribes will have a map to share with you, showing what counties and where that they are interested in. This one is from the Osage Nation. You can see that they were along the Ohio River Valley and then they moved west. And it shows, you know, hunting grounds, and it shows areas they have been historically, their reservation land now. Just so they know, if you have something from one of these counties, to please contact them. They want to consult with you on that. Many tribes have this, many tribes do not. So you contact them and ask for help. Ask them if they're interested in something you might have. So you've done a summary, which is just your summary of everything in your collections. It could say, we hold Native American artifacts from these areas. You know, my museum has stuff from the Arctic and the Southwest and in California, lots of plain stuff. Kind of giving them ideas. You can't, of course, list everything because no one can read all of your pieces, but give them a summary. And if they're interested, they will contact you. The inventory, which was due, you can still turn on in, listing all of your objects, and then consult. Consult, I don't have a check mark by because you are never done with consulting. You will consult at the beginning, you will consult in the middle, you will consult at the end, you will repatriate, you will keep consulting. Things will come up. You know how museums are. We open a box and we're like, where did this come from? Or I think this is labeled wrong. We need to fix it. Now I have to talk to a different tribe based on information. I have a piece now that it says it's near this other site, but it doesn't know where it's from. And so like, who do I talk to based on that information? And how can I narrow that down, digging into the archaeological information? So you'll make a list for your inventory of culturally affiliated stuff and the easy stuff, which is what my museum did, maybe others as well. Historic sites, you know what tribe was there, so you can match those up and culturally affiliate and repatriate those. So say an ancient historic Osage site, those can be matched and culturally affiliated quickly. The others, that without cultural affiliation, we call culturally unidentifiable. Some people like that term and some don't, because if you work hard, maybe you can find a cultural affiliation. And those that you don't know which tribes. And those are treated differently. If you know which tribe it's affiliated with, you can move forward. If you don't have a tribal affiliation, you have to work with other tribes, and if someone wants to make a claim, they can. And then that goes out on a post to the National Register, and people can say, oh, hey, we're interested in 2, or hey, they can say, we actually think that's ours, or, you know, it lets people know about things. So those are different ways. And then you write your notice of inventory completion. I thought you wrote it and sent it in. No. You write it, you share it with your tribal partners so that if there's any problems, you can get it corrected before you send it in to NAGPRA to be on the National Register. And after that's up for 30 days, if there's nobody asking for more information or trying to get more information, after 30 days, you can repatriate. And that means to transfer custody and control, physical possession of the objects to the tribe or tribes that are interested in those. Or disposition, which is a terrible word, but there it is. If it's something that's culturally unidentifiable, one tribe is claiming it so they can get it and rebury it or whatever they're going to do with it. It's as a museum, it's not my business what they do with it. They can tell us or not tell us, you know, it's giving it to them to take care of, and they will take care of that. Usually if it's more than one tribe, one of the tribes will take the lead and they will take the actual possession, things like that. So just to remember, treat everything with respect. Human remains, funerary objects, sacred objects, objects of cultural patrimony. Ask NAGPRA for help. I'm here, ask me. I'll tell you what I know. Everyone's happy to answer questions and help you. We won't think you're stupid. We won't, all of us came from there, and you know, every now we come up with an object that we don't know what to do with. And so it helps to know what to do. Information shared with you with tribes may not meant to be public. They're telling you this so you know how to care for that item, at least while you have it. And you may have it forever, you may not, it may be repatriated. They want you to know about that object, but that doesn't mean you go write an article and share it or tell everyone about that. So you need to ask before sharing. Some tribes have written traditional care and handling guidelines, and they're happy to share those with you if you have anything from their tribe or suspected from their tribe. So you can ask for those if they have some, and just keep working on it. NAGPRA is ongoing, it doesn't end. So keep your lines of communication open, and talk to them, talk to the tribes, let them know how you're doing, or ask them if they need anything, if they need anything from you, anything you can do to help. Just keep talking. That's all. We're all people. We're all trying to do the best for things, and go from there. This is the National NAGPRA website. It's just nps.gov/NAGPRA. You can find that on the land. There is supposed to be a conference in Denver this fall, 30 years of NAGPRA, to see how far we've come, what we need to work on. Hopefully it goes through. It might have to be virtual, like everything else we're planning. And that would be combined with a National NAGPRA Review Committee meeting, it sounds like. And you can go to those and learn more stuff. But that's some of the things that they're doing, and you can learn about. So I'm going to stop screen sharing if I can figure out how to do that. There we go. And see if you guys have any questions. I know that was fast, but there's so much to do. We could talk for 3 days. And in fact, there are trainings that are days long that you can learn more about NAGPRA, and each section and what to do with your affiliated, your culturally unidentifiable, where do you start, what is what, how would you handle this? And those are available as well. So, does anyone have questions? How do you know if your museum has completed this? That's something to say. I didn't mention, I mentioned there are databases online. So you can know which tribe to contact. There are also databases to look at inventories that museums have sent in. So if you searched, show me everyone from the state that has stuff from the state of Missouri, it'll show all of the institutions and agencies. So you'll see the University of Missouri listed there. It will show you which tribes are on there and contact information that may or may not be up to date. But you can go in and see your summary. You can see your inventories. So you can say, show me everything from this county in Missouri, and it'll show you the list. And so, and that is updated. They are a little bit behind because it's a lot. They are updating and adding more information to that. So you can go in and see. You can see if your inventory, what says you have, matches what you have. So if you've updated your inventory, you might want to send them a correction. Like, we found out this bone is actually a bison bone, it's not a human. So you need to send a correction so that they know that. Or actually, we think this is now actually 2 people. You want to update that information. And so you can go there and see what's on there. And someone asks, does a tribe have to provide some sort of proof when claiming any item from a museum collection? Proof, no, but you have to list which thing you're using for your claim. Is it kinship? Is it geography? We were there historically. Was it oral history? They might say that when they're asking from something. So that's a good one. What do you handle when 2 tribes might claim the same object? So you hold a Zoom meeting. Actually, in-person consultation is preferred. costs money to travel. I'm in Missouri. There are no reservations here. So either I'm traveling or the tribes are all traveling here. So we try to limit that. So I try to hold my consultation meetings closer to the tribes. It's easier for me to move than to move several tribes at once. But you'll get them together and they'll discuss it. And they may agree like, okay, both of our names are going to go on there. You're going to be the lead tribe, which means you'll take possession and do everything, but they'll still be consulting on that. And that can go just fine. You may have a space where two tribes don't want anyone else on there, or they want to be the lead and the other tribe wants to be the lead, in which case the NAGPRA review committee will have a meeting between that and try to work that out so that it can be agreed upon. It doesn't always work out though, but there is a way to work through something like that if two tribes feel very strongly about that. So. Yes, this is the hard part. Do you have any tips for making contact with the tribes or identifying who to contact? This is the hardest part for me, And National NAGPRA try to have a consultation database. It doesn't always get updated. Tribes, like any other government, have changes in administration. So who was your NAGPRA contact before may not be your NAGPRA contact now. Or they maybe have handled it one way in the past, but they want to do it differently now. You need to know that and confirm. Don't just assume we did it this way always, we'll do it this way always. They may want to handle it differently. So I start with there. I go to the tribal webpage. Not all tribes have web pages. I've found a lot of tribes have Facebook pages. And if there's only one phone number listed, I will call that phone number and start asking around. If I have a name, I'll ask for that person. And if that person's not there, I might say, who is your historic preservation officer, their TIPO, which is your tribal historic preservation officer. I may ask, who's your NAGPRA person? Whoever's answering the phone may not know what NAGPRA is. So I just take the first phone and I just start calling, and I email again, and I try a different email. And it does take a lot of time, but you have to start. And I have to say, sometimes I can't get a hold of anyone at a tribe. I'll get a hit and I'll talk to somebody, and then I never hear back from them again. And I just, wait a few months and try again, which I'm trying to do. So what's the most respectful, safest way to package and transfer remains, especially across state lines? Good question. You're going to ask your tribe. My last consultation meeting, I can say this freely, tribes prefer that human remains be in, okay, let's see. The tribes I was speaking with prefer that human remains be in biodegradable containers. As an archaeologist, we like things to be permanent, and we put things in plastic bags with permanent marker on the bag. We really want to keep everything separate. Not so here. The tribes asked for those remains we were talking about be in biodegradable. So it could be unbleached muslin, acid-free boxes. I use paper tags to tie on there so I know about it, but it can degrade, because eventually if they're going to repatriate and they want to rebury it, they may want it to biodegrade and go back to nature. And so talk with them. Sometimes the tribes will come to you and you won't have to move anything, and sometimes you might take something to them. It would depend. You would work that out. And every tribe is different in what they might want to carry it in officially. So once you're down to that specific tribe, you can ask them and see what they might want to do. Sometimes they might come by and want to say a prayer over specifically their remains, or all of the remains that you may have, or the objects, and they may just want to come in and just say a prayer, and we would, of course, accommodate that. We wouldn't be a part of it because we're not, but you want to accommodate. They may want to leave an offering next to an object. Say they want to offer some corn to this object. Can you leave it here for a few hours? So you may do that, and it can be very, very different for each tribe. So can't generalize. I thought everyone would come right away when I became NAGPRA coordinator and take everything away, and you have to work it out and figure out how they're going to do it. Because remember, tribes did not have set reburial practices because they were not supposed to be dug up in the first place. So asking them to go rebury was not something they had planned in the first place. So that might be something, you know, to work about. So let's see. Freedom's Frontier. Fantastic. Talk about grant opportunities. Yes, grant opportunities are awesome. I'm holding 2 NAGPRA grants right now. They are, I have the consultation and documentation grant. So that helps fund in-person consultation meetings, travel, per diems, things like that, and meeting space so that you can get together and talk about it. And it covers documentation. So getting the inventory, getting proper counts and descriptions of the artifacts, because the artifacts can help determine which tribe it might be. You want to be able to offer them all the information on the site that you might have so that they can decide you can culturally affiliate properly. And so getting that together. So getting this stuff together and doing the actual consultation. The other grant, which is, I believe, reviewed twice a year, is repatriation grants. So you say you've set it all up and you're ready to repatriate to a tribe, you need to fund the cedar box they want it to go in, or the travel for the people to come and do the reburial. And it can fund travel so that it can actually take place. It can be very expensive if they're traveling very far. You know, objects move far in the museum world, so they can help fund repatriation. And those are online. They are not hard, but not easy to fill out, but you do need to have a tribal partner. Like if a museum wrote a grant and they didn't have a letter of support from a tribe or more than one tribe, likely not going to get funded. So you need to pre-talk to your tribe. Say, I'm writing this grant for this collection. Here's what I'm thinking. What are you thinking? What am I needing? I would love to have you be a partner. I want to consult with you. Do you support this? And so you would talk with them and work that out for your grant for that kind of thing. And tribes and museums can apply. So the tribe can apply for a repatriation or a consultation grant. So either one can apply. Let's see, but dealing with NAGPRA in a museum is a full-time position. Yes, it takes a lot of my time. It would be nice, especially if you have a large collection, to have a full-time NAGPRA person. I would say mine is 40% of my job. It doesn't move quickly, but my grants allow me to have a staff of an additional 4 part-time people to work on those specific projects. And of course, I have more collections that are also there. So yeah, it does take a long time to work on it, because you want to check everything is right before you call and then wait on an answer, because tribes are inundated with a lot of requests. So it can take some time to get back with them and organize a meeting and things like that. Any other questions? Like I said, I don't know everything, but I'm here to answer any questions. Feel free to call me or email me. I'm happy to talk to you at any time. Yeah. So should you do NAGPRA even if you have just artifacts and not human remains? Yes, you want to do NAGPRA and send out a summary and to see if anyone's interested. And then they may contact you to do that. How has NAGPRA changed in the last 30 years? That's a good question. Being an archaeologist, I've seen both sides. I haven't seen the tribal side that well because I'm not tribal, but from an archaeology side, as soon as NAGPRA passed, I was still in high school, because that might me sound young. Everyone thought that the tribes would come and take everything out of the museum and no one would have anything to study and we wouldn't learn anything and everything would be lost to history. So of course, people wrote articles about, NAGPRA at 20 years, at 2000, at 2010. Where are we? Has everything gone? Have we learned anything new? So they come to find out that we have learned a whole bunch of stuff just doing the NAGPRA, not trying to do any DNA analysis or destructive analysis of human remains or things that everyone thought would be lost to us forever. So they found out that the NAGPRA process did not get everything immediately out of the museums, and that we have learned a lot of things. I think we've learned more to talk to tribes. Everyone, I don't know, they seem afraid of calling tribes. Don't be afraid to call tribes. I mean, we're all afraid of making a faux pas, but call, and if they feel like you're trying your best and you just don't know, they would wish that you knew, but they will help you to do different things. So yeah, I think museum people are becoming more trained. We're knowing more what to do. We know that NAGPRA exists, and to work with people, and learning that it helps the museum as well. You know, you're talking with tribes, and I want to do a Native American exhibit. There's experts right there on that dress you want to show, and they can tell you more about it that you didn't even know, and can help you put that object, which is sitting there on a nice, clean museum shelf, put it in context. We take our objects in museums, we take care of them as long as possible. Maybe they weren't meant to last forever. They can put that in context. That dress is worn at the summer dance, or that is an object we bring out for the harvest. Whatever it is, they can tell you that, and you don't know that, and that's likely not on your label. And so really it helps you make yourself a better museum than you were in the beginning. So I think it's been very helpful. So yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Candace. That was great, and I really appreciated this talk. I think you gave originally at our conference last year in Springfield. I'm glad we were able to bring it to a wider audience on Zoom, and I know you've added some updated information, so it's not exactly the same. If you guys have any other questions, you're welcome to stick around. I think Candace will be here for a few more minutes, and if you have particular questions about your own particular institution, Candy will be here. Don't forget, we do have another webinar on this Friday at 1:30, and that's harnessing the power of museums and archives to create transformative conversations about race in America. So make sure and get signed up for that. But yeah, thank you so much, Candy. I thank all of you for joining. And if you have questions, stick around. We had a lot of people from all over the place today.
Yeah, that was exciting.
Alabama and Indiana and Iowa and
Indiana's